Exposed. Incredible woman discovers hidden truth as cop attempts to frame her with cocaine. Emily stood behind the counter of Sweet Dreams, the familiar scents of cinnamon and vanilla wrapping around her like a warm hug. The sound of laughter from her two kids playing in the back filled her heart with joy, but today was different. Today, an icy chill crept into her cozy haven. Just as she adjusted her apron, a familiar voice, once friendly, now sharp as shards of glass, cut through the sweet atmosphere. "We need to talk, Emily." It was Officer Grayson. He was supposed to be their protector or friend. But now, he delivered uncertain news with a demeanor that pierced through the warm, flower-dusted air. With every step he took towards her, the room felt less like a bakery and more like a courtroom filled with tension. Unbeknownst to Emily, darkness was brewing beneath the surface of her community's values, and she could soon be trapped in a web of deceit. Weeks had passed since she had last baked her signature cherry pie, the one that brought smiles and connections. The sweet faces of her loyal customers now seemed hesitant, and whispers punctured the air like sharp knives, questioning her character and the heart of her bakery. She felt it a collective distance growing, her heartache echoing in every corner of Maplewood. To them, the beloved baker had become untrustworthy. As she wiped a tear from her cheek, thoughts of her children pressed heavy on her heart. How could she protect her family when the very community she served was turning its back? It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to fall. Would she fight for the truth? A warm smile once filled with happiness now trembled in despair. But deep inside, a flame sparked. Emily was no stranger to adversity. Every late-night baking, every community fundraiser, every meal she shared with those in need echoed the spirit of resilience that had defined her life. She would not let this go unchallenged. She could be the voice of the unheard, the beacon of hope in a time of uncertainty. She began her journey of unearthing the ugly reality. It was a path fraught with danger, tangled in murky lies, but with every clue she gathered, her resolve strengthened. She stumbled upon a shocking truth. It wasn't just her bakery under threat. Officer Grayson was playing a game, one that jeopardized innocent lives. Emily dug deeper, feeling each layer of secrecy peel back, revealing corruption cascading through their once trusted protectors. It all came to a head at the town hall meeting. The gym was filled with familiar faces, family, friends, and loyal customers, those who should have supported her now lurking with doubt. Heart racing, she could feel every heartbeat in that room. A hush fell over the crowd when she stepped up to the podium, shaking like leaves in a storm. "I have something to say before we continue. I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." With a surge of emotion, she held up the evidence, a tangible thread linking Grayson to the lies that had ensnared her life. The room erupted, whispers turning into gasps, faces shifting from suspicion to disbelief. Emily had quickly become the voice of a community caught between trust and betrayal. As her heart swelled with courage, she faced the sea of uncertain eyes, poised to reclaim her bakery, her name, and maybe even the faith of Maplewood. The question lingered in the air. Could she navigate this storm of betrayal, or would the shadows consume her light forever? Emily took a deep breath, her hands shaking slightly as she studied the evidence before her. The photographs, the names, proof of Officer Grayson's schemes had the power to change everything. Just as she began to speak, the sound of murmuring reverberated through the gym, shaking her confidence. "Emily, it's hard to believe," a voice called out from the crowd. It was Mrs. Thompson, one of her most loyal customers, but the doubt in her tone cut deeper than any knife. A wave of nausea swept over Emily, but she couldn't back down. "I know this sounds unbelievable," she replied, voice trembling but steady enough to carry over the anxious whispers. "But these documents show that Grayson has been using his badge to manipulate our trust. He has been framing people to cover his own secrets." The murmurs swelled, voices overlapping as fear and confusion gripped the audience. Emily spotted her children at the back, eyes wide as they leaned against the wall. Their belief in her shone fiercely, like beacons in a storm. Looking back at the crowd, she realized she wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for all of them. Look beyond the badge, she urged, her voice rising above the clamor. Think of all the times he's been a friend, how he's won your trust. But trust is built on honesty, not lies. Slowly, heads began to nod. A younger man, James, who had come to her bakery since he was a child, stepped forward, anger sparking in his eyes. You're right, Emily. We can't let fear hold us back. We need to know the truth. Exactly. Emily felt hope swell in her chest. The truth can set us free. If we band together, we can expose what's been happening. The energy in the room shifted. Conversations erupted among the crowd, some shouting support, others still hesitating. Just then, Grayson, who had been lurking near the entrance, stepped forward, his face a mask of fury. Do you think this is a joke, Emily? He spat, venom dripping from his words. You're playing with fire, and it's going to burn your whole family. The threat rang clear, sharp enough to silence the room. Emily's heart raced, but she stood tall, refusing to let his intimidation sway her. If I'm going down, it's going to be fighting for what's right. Suddenly, a woman near the front stood up, her voice cracking but determined. I trust you, Emily. My son nearly fell victim to this corruption, and we need to rally behind you. A ripple of agreement surged through the crowd, voices rising in support. Emily felt their energy surrounding her like an armor. Yet amidst the assurances, a haunting fear edged in the back of her mind. What if Grayson had allies? What if exposing this led to backlash that could hurt her family? She clenched her jaw, battling the doubts. She needed a strategy, not just bravery. As the crowd rallied around her, Emily knew this wasn't the end, but just the beginning. Investigation would take steps beyond words. She had to create a plan to unveil the truth without risking everything they loved. Let us meet at the bakery, she called, heart pounding with renewed purpose. Together, we'll uncover the truth and protect our community. The crowd cheered, a wave of hope washed over them. But as Emily looked into the faces lighting up with determination, her heart sank with unspoken worries. Could she truly gather the evidence without drawing more danger? As she exited the gym, she felt the weight of impending confrontation pressing in on her. Determined yet anxious, Emily prepared for the storm ahead, knowing she had awakened not only her community, but also the greed lurking in the shadows. What she didn't expect was the news that would come the next morning. The bright morning sun filtered through Emily's bedroom window, casting warm rays on the scattered papers strewn across her desk. Sleepless nights filled with anxiety had led to a haze of exhaustion clinging to her eyelids. She barely managed to close her eyes when the phone rang, slicing through the silence with urgency. Emily, you need to see this. It was James, his voice crackling with excitement and an undercurrent of dread. I just got news it's bad. It's really bad. Her heart quickened. What happened? There's been a raid. At Leo's home, the guy who works the docks. They found a stash of drugs, Emily. And guess who is saying it's his? Grayson. The world tilted slightly, the walls feeling like they had shrunk around her. What do you mean, Grayson? Grayson claims Leo's running some major ring, but Leo's innocent. I mean, this is typical. They're using him to draw attention away from what's really going on. As James spoke, Emily felt a knot tighten in her stomach. They were already targeting someone else. Grayson was stirring the pot again, using fear to maintain control. We have to help him. We can't let Grayson destroy another life to cover his own. The fire in Emily's belly ignited flat out. She had barely begun to gather evidence against Grayson, and now he was reeling everyone in the community into his chaos. Let us meet at the bakery. We'll plan how to help Leo. James agreed, his determination matching her own. After hanging up the phone, Emily took a moment to compose herself. She glanced at the photos on her desk again, the faces that told wild stories buried under Grayson's manipulation. Those people had trusted him, just like Leo would and she felt their struggles weighing heavily on her heart. The bakery, usually a sanctuary of sweet scents and happy faces, felt charged with a different energy that morning. As she opened the door, she was met with familiar faces filled with concern. Have you heard about Leo? Asked Mrs. Thompson, her voice barely above a whisper. At that moment, the bakery wasn't just a place of business. It was a war room. Emily set out to engage her community, rallying her neighbors around a common goal, exposing the truth, protecting the innocent, and showing Grayson that they were no longer afraid. As ideas flew, James jumped in with a plan for Leo's defense, while others spoke of reaching out to local media. One woman suggested gathering signatures for a petition against Grayson, tapping into the resentment felt by many. They needed to act quickly, bringing the community together before Grayson paralyzed them with fear again. Yet, as ideas flowed, a pit remained in Emily's stomach. It was just a matter of time before Grayson would retaliate. If they made too much noise, would they risk their own safety? She glanced around at the faces of the people she cared for, the shared hope in their eyes momentarily soothing her fears. But the stakes were high, and she couldn't shake the gnawing unease. As they organized their first demonstration against Grayson's misdeeds, Emily's mind raced with what could happen next. Would they be strong enough to stand up together? Or would the darkness in Grayson's corner swallow them whole? Taking a deep breath, she addressed the group, feeling the weight of their trust settle on her shoulders. Together, we have a chance to make things right. But we have to be careful. Grayson won't back down without a fight. Just when she thought they were gaining momentum, a shadow shifted outside the bakery. Emily turned, her heart pounding as she saw a police cruiser park across the street. She couldn't help but feel her stomach drop. Could it be that Grayson was already onto them? Was this the beginning of a confrontation she could never prepare for? The tension in the bakery thickened, a palpable anxiety spreading through the gathered crowd. Emily's heart raced as she caught James's worried glance. They all understood the implications of that police cruiser. It felt like a storm was gathering, ready to break free. "Stay calm," Emily said, her voice steady but low. "Let us keep our voices down and continue our planning discreetly." Eyes darting toward the window, they pretended to go on with their discussions about flyers and signatures, but calculations of danger lurked in the air. Some whispered reassurances while others bit their lips, fear visibly etched on their faces. One of the women, Margaret, leaned closer to Emily. "Do you think they'll come in?" she asked, her voice trembling. Emily shook her head. I don't know, but we can't let them disrupt what we're doing here." Feeling the weight of the moment, she took a deep breath, her own thoughts swirling. Grayson was unyielding, but they held the power of community, didn't they? As if on cue, the door to the bakery opened wide, the little bell tinkling cheerfully in stark contrast to the knot in Emily's stomach. A tall officer stepped in, followed by a badge-wielding woman. The officer's hardened expression sent a chill through the group. "Good morning," he said, glancing around as if taking stock of the tension. "We're looking for Emily Carter." Emily's heart raced, the blood pumping in her ears like a drum. "That's me," she said, trying to hold her ground even as her voice wavered. "Can we talk outside?" he asked, gesturing toward the door. A hush fell over the gathering. The warmth of the bakery turned icy. Claire, another neighbor, stepped forward, protective instinct kicking in. "What is this about? You can't just take her." The officer's gaze darkened, narrowing as he spoke clearly. "I'm just following up on a report." Emily raised her chin, squaring her shoulders. "A report? What is this about?" "Interrogation," the woman beside him stated flatly, her eyes scanning the room. "You've been implicated in activities related to narcotics found at Leo's residence." It felt like a punch to the gut. Emily could hardly breathe, and her heart pounded like thunder in her ears. "That is absurd. I'm not involved with Leo or whatever they found." "Then you'll have the chance to prove that in a statement," the officer replied nonchalantly, an unsettling calm about him. "I suggest you comply." As he stepped closer, James's fists clenched at his sides. Emily could feel the silent radiating support from her friends, but the enormity of the situation gnawed at her insides. "Emily, don't go with them," James shouted, but Emily raised a hand. "Wait," she said, desperation creeping into her voice. "I'll go, but I need someone to come with me." "I'll be right there," James insisted, stepping toward her, ready to follow. "Not how it works," the officer interrupted, a hint of irritation in his tone. "It's best if you go alone." Emily felt every eye on her, weighing her choices. The community she fought so hard to protect was watching her unravel before them. As she stepped toward the door, the gravity of the moment washed over her fear, isolation, and a flicker of hope. In that instant, she remembered her resolve. Grayson was trying to silence her, but she wouldn't be a pawn. She would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. "Let us go," she said, taking one last look at her friends, bracing herself for whatever awaited her. As she walked out into the blaring sunlight, the door swung shut behind her, leaving the whispers of the bakery behind. What had Grayson set in motion, and how deep did his betrayal run? Emily clenched her fists, determination hardening her resolve. Just then, as if the universe had a cruel sense of humor, Emily caught sight of a figure lurking at the street corner. It was Grayson, smirking, a puppeteer watching as his strings tightened around her. What did he have planned next? The heat of the sun bore down on Emily as she stepped onto the sidewalk, her heart racing. The officer led her away from the crowd, his back straight and purposeful, completely indifferent to the tension coiling in the pit of her stomach. With each step, the bakery's warm laughter faded, replaced by the chilling reality of her situation. "Why now?" she asked, trying to break the silence as they walked. "Why are you here today?" "Questions will be answered at the station," the officer replied brusquely, not turning to acknowledge her. Emily's mind raced. She thought of the community rally, the plans they were making. None of it mattered now. Grayson's shadow loomed larger than any project she inspired. It was a dark omen whispering threats she had ignored for too long. When they reached the cruiser, the woman with the badge opened the door and smiled, but there was nothing warm in her eyes. "Get in, please." Emily hesitated. Chills crept down her spine at the thought of being alone with them, of being whisked away into a system that felt increasingly hostile. Still, her resolve fortified. If she was going to fight this, she had to gather every ounce of strength. As she slid into the back seat, the officer followed her inside, shutting the door with a definitive thud that echoed the finality of the moment. The smell of leather mixed with the harsh sterility of the police car. "Do you have any idea why you're in this situation?" the officer asked, glancing back at her while the car began to pull away. "I have no involvement with Leo or any illegal activity," she shot back, anger boiling inside her. "You've got it all wrong." He frowned, but not with skepticism, more like with some sort of understanding that made her uneasy. "The evidence speaks differently. We found things at his house, and your name came up as someone who frequented there. How does that even make sense?" Emily protested. "I didn't know what he was doing. I just wanted to help him." The officer turned his gaze to the road, shaking his head slightly. "Help him how? You need to be aware that what we're looking at here is serious." Emily's heart sank. The previous day, she was fighting for her community's voice, and now she was caught in a web she couldn't escape. The woman turned, her expression hardening. "We have enough evidence to take this further if we need to. So I suggest you start thinking about how you want to play this." "Play what?" Emily spat out, any hint of composure crumbling. "I'm not playing anything. I want to fight this." Outside, the familiar shapes of the neighborhood blurred by. Each corner she recognized felt more foreign now, each street sign mocking her vibrant memories. "Emily, this isn't a game," the officer said, his tone sharper. "You either cooperate or we escalate the charges. And if you're innocent, you should want to clear your name." "Cooperate." The word echoed in her mind. Thoughts about her friends back at the bakery rushed in their worry, their fear she couldn't let them down. If she had to make choices, she needed to choose wisely. As they approached the police station, a painful thought scratched at her resolve. What if Grayson's smirk was only the beginning? What if he had set up more than just the framing? Arriving at the station, the weight of the building settled on her chest. She was trapped in a pawn-esque game crafted by someone she once trusted. The officer motioned her out, and as she stepped onto the pavement, she noticed other officers moving through the station. One of them caught her eye, and for a fleeting moment, hope sparked in her chest. Could someone help her? But the thought evaporated just as quickly. She had to stand her ground. Whatever lay ahead, she wouldn't allow Grayson to weave her fate. Visions of her community, their support, and their trust fueled her as she took her first step inside. Suddenly, from across the parking lot, she caught a glimpse of a figure, James, anxiously watching from the shadows. Her heart raced. Did he know what was happening? Would he fight for her? What was Grayson's next move, and could Emily outsmart him before it was too late? The fluorescent lights in the police station flickered overhead as Emily stepped inside, her pulse hammering in her ears. The sound of hurried voices and ringing phones wrapped around her like a suffocating blanket. She tore her gaze away from James, who had already vanished back into the shadows, and focused on the officer ahead of her. "Come on," the officer urged, his step brisk. This way. As she followed, anxiety twisted in her gut. Every step echoed her fears. What did they really have against her? Would she be able to prove her innocence before it was too late? The faces of the officers in the hallway blurred together, each one a reminder of the case against her. She felt like a deer caught in headlights, paralyzed. Inside an interrogation room, the officer gestured for her to sit. The metal chair was cold against her skin as she lowered herself into it. The door clicked shut, amplifying her solitude. "Emily, let's keep this straightforward," he said, taking a seat across from her. "I've already mentioned the evidence. Now we need to discuss your alibi." "Alibi?" she squeaked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was at the bakery all day. I can call anyone who was there, and they will tell you the same." He leaned in, eyes narrowing. "But you were seen leaving Leo's place a couple of nights ago. And that's troubling. Nobody just comes and goes without a reason." "Because I wanted to help," she insisted, her voice growing steadier. "Leo was struggling. I thought I could be there for him. I had no idea he was involved in anything illegal." The officer rubbed the back of his neck, frustration etched on his face. "You're not grasping the severity of this, Emily. If you're connected to him, it puts you in a tough spot. You could be looking at serious time." Serious time. The phrase tasted bitter as it rolled through her mind. Would the community she'd fought for even care if she was behind bars? Would they believe her innocence? Her throat tightened. "If you think I'm guilty because of my association with someone else, that's not fair." She paused, gathering her courage. "You know deep down that I'm not involved in any of this. I want to let you frame me." The officer sighed, leaning back in his chair as if the weight of the world rested upon his shoulders. "I'm just trying to help you understand how serious this is, but what if it's not me?" Emily interrupted, urgency prickling her skin. "If Grayson set this up, I want to let him win. He's using me to cover his own tracks." A flicker of uncertainty crossed his expression, enough to encourage her. "You know Grayson too, right? He has been a problem for months. If he wants me out of the way, he'll do anything to push me into the spotlight. You have to believe that." She saw his brow furrow, and her determination surged. Maybe she wasn't as alone as she thought. "If you give me a chance to prove myself, I can show you the truth. It's bigger than just me." "Prove what?" he challenged. "You don't have any idea the lengths he'll go to. These people are dangerous." "Might be," she said, her voice now steady. "But I can't stay in the dark while he drags me down. I need to fight for what's right, and you'll see that I'm innocent." Emily could feel her pulse quickening, not with fear this time, but with newfound resolve. She wasn't just a pawn in someone else's game. She could play to win. The officer remained silent, still contemplating. Just then, a knock echoed through the door, pulling them both back to reality. When it swung open, another officer entered, urgency radiating from him. "Sorry to interrupt, but we need you in the briefing room." "You want to believe this?" His eyes darted to Emily. "What is it?" she asked, her heart pounding. "Grayson has been rounded up. And he's not alone." Shivers raced down her spine. What else had he gotten himself into? And how might it affect her? Could this be her chance to unravel the truth? The stakes had just become higher, and Emily was ready to fight back no matter what it took. Emily's heart raced as the officer spoke. Grayson had been caught. She felt a rush of adrenaline mixed with trepidation. Was this the break she needed, or was it another step deeper into the chaos? The officer who had been talking to Emily shifted his focus to the newcomer. "What do we know?" he asked, his tone now brisk and businesslike. "Surveillance caught Grayson meeting with a known dealer. They think he might have something in his possession," the new officer replied. "They're bringing him in for questioning right now." "What does this mean for Emily?" The officer looked back at her, now with a mix of suspicion and curiosity. "It means if he is tied to something larger, I might be his way out." "I need to connect those dots," Emily said, her voice stronger now. "Okay," the officer replied, "but you need to be careful. If he senses you're onto him, he might try to get rid of you." Emily nodded, feeling the weight of the situation hang heavy on her shoulders. She had to make sure that didn't happen. She had to keep going. "Let us go," the officer said, motioning for her to follow. They walked down the sterile hallway, with each step amplifying the uncertainty within her. Her mind raced as they approached the briefing room. What would Grayson say? Would he deny everything and throw her under the bus? The room was filled with officers buzzing with energy, a mixture of tension and expectation. Emily's eyes scanned the group, seeking out the face she both dreaded and felt compelled to confront. Grayson had hurt people. She would rather face him now than let him get away with it again. As they entered, the murmurs quieted. All eyes turned toward her, weighing her presence. The officer from earlier introduced her to the room. This is Emily. She may know more than she's let on about Grayson. She felt the stares, harsh and accusatory, and her heart sank slightly. Was she being viewed as a criminal, too? But there was no turning back now. A door opened at the far end, and Grayson was escorted in by two officers. His head was down, but when he lifted it, a smirk curled on his lips. Emily's stomach twisted. She couldn't let him intimidate her. Look who's here, he said, voice dripping with sarcasm. Little Miss Bakery. What's the matter? Need a fresh batch of cookies to sweeten your story? Shut up, Grayson. The words slipped out before she could stop herself, a spark igniting her defiance. He tilted his head, surprised. Oh, feisty now are we? You don't know who you're dealing with. Don't I? Emily shot back. The officer beside her shifted, clearly on alert. You think you're some kingpin? You're a coward. Laughter erupted from the officers. Emily's heart raced with both fear and exhilaration. This was her moment. She couldn't let Grayson control the narrative any longer. An officer leaned in. Grayson, why don't you tell us what you were doing with the dealer? The smirk faded, replaced by a cold glare. I think you have it all wrong, he began, but Emily wasn't going to let him spin it. Grayson, she interrupted, voice steady and sharp. You know I'm not going to let you walk away scot-free. You'll tell the truth, or I will. The tension in the room thickened. Emily could feel the weight of what she had just said. Looks like someone's found her backbone, Grayson said, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. Enough of this, the officer in charge said, raising his voice. We need answers. As the interrogation started, Emily met Grayson's gaze head-on, daring him to lie. She could feel everyone's eyes on her, and for the first time, she didn't feel small. She was ready to fight for her truth. But as she sat there with her heart in her throat, the dawning realization hit her like a cold wave. Grayson had something hidden inside him that could trap her in a web of deceit. What if he turned the tables on her? As she leaned forward, determined to get to the bottom of it, she knew the battle had just begun. Could she truly uncover Grayson's deceit before the walls closed in around her? Would it be enough to keep herself out of the line of fire? The next few moments would determine everything. The air was electric as Grayson leaned back in his chair, a cynical smile still dancing on his lips. His confidence, while unnerving, only fueled Emily's drive. She felt her pulse quicken, not with fear, but with a fierce determination. The officers around her were leaning in, their expressions a mix of skepticism and curiosity. They wanted answers, and she felt like the weight of it all rested upon her shoulders. Let us start over, the officer in charge reasserted. Grayson, we saw you meet with someone we know as a dealer. Tell us why. Grayson shrugged, the smirk returning. Just doing a favor for a friend. It's a small town, you know. Everyone helps each other out. Help? Emily shot back, her voice sharper than before. You're blackmailing people. You've ruined lives. That sparked another ripple of chatter among the officers. Grayson's expression hardened, but Emily saw his facade start to crack. At that moment, she realized she held the power, even in this room filled with authority. Enough games. The lead officer snapped, focusing on Grayson again. Tell us what you had in your possession. Suddenly, he shifted in his seat, all bravado fading into a half-hearted chuckle. What if I don't feel like it? You think you can pin anything on me? I'll talk when I want to talk. Emily felt the tension thickening, pressing down on her chest. She had to summon all her courage. She leaned in closer. You can keep pretending you're invincible, but you're not. You know what I'm capable of. I won't let you bury me with your lies. Grayson narrowed his eyes, and for a moment, she thought she saw a flicker of fear. Was he starting to consider the vulnerability he tried so hard to hide? What is she talking about? Another officer interjected, glancing between Emily and Grayson. You two know each other? A chill coursed through Emily, but she didn't waver. We used to before he chose this life. The words tasted bitter on her tongue. Moments I wish I could forget. Grayson rolled his eyes, but she pressed forward. You think you've made it so no one can touch you, but I'm here. I won't back down. I'll tell them everything. Let us not kid ourselves. Emily, Grayson countered with a sly grin. Do you really think they'll believe you over me? Maybe they will. Maybe they won tea, she shot back, her resolve hardening. But you'll have to answer for it, one way or another. The officer's gaze shifted between them, processing the tension hanging like a heavy fog in the room. Emily, is this personal for you? He asked, his tone softer, trying to gauge her emotions. Yes, it is. Emily took a deep breath, the weight pressing against her making it hard to breathe. He has hurt people I care about. He has hurt me. The problem is, Grayson interjected, you're just someone with hurt feelings. What you need to realize is that in this game, you're outmatched. Emily's pulse raced, but she stood tall. I've been hurt before, but I'm not going to let you walk away this time. You're not the only one with stakes in this. The silence that followed was deafening, and every officer in the room seemed to hold their breath. Grayson's expression wavered, doubt creeping into the corners of his smile as Emily held his gaze steadfast. Then, breaking the moment, an officer stood and announced, "We'll take a break. Let us regroup." He nodded toward the door. Emily felt a rush of adrenaline swimming through her. They were giving her time. Time to think. Time to plot her next move against Grayson. As she stepped out into the buzzing hallway, she realized that this fight was far from over. The stakes had escalated, and she now faced not just Grayson's deceit, but the fragile reality of her own truth. But as she walked away, a chilling thought hit her. What if Grayson had allies beyond the walls of this interrogation room? What if he managed to sway the truth in his favor before she could get the chance to expose him? The shadows of doubt began to loom again. Emily knew she needed more than just courage. She needed a plan. What if she could find evidence that would turn the tide in her favor before it was too late? And who could she trust to help her unravel Grayson's schemes? Emily stepped into the bustling hallway, her heart pounding in time with the rush of voices around her. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow on the faces of officers passing by, their conversations a mix of irritation and intrigue. But all she could think about was Grayson. What if he managed to reach someone on the outside? The thought chilled her. He had a way of weaving himself into the fabric of their town, charming and charmingly dangerous. She rubbed her palms against her jeans, grounding herself. She needed to find allies, people who genuinely wanted to see Grayson brought down. As she walked, her mind raced. Whom could she turn to? Her friends? No, they were unaware of the darkness lurking beneath Grayson's charm. But then there was Jack, the local reporter. He had always cared about the truth, and she had read enough of his articles to trust his integrity. The thought provided a flicker of hope. If she could convince him to look into Grayson, perhaps he could dig up anything that would shed light on his activities. She reached for her phone and straightened her shoulders. Jack might not be able to directly intervene, but a published piece could shift perceptions in the community. Maybe it could even catch the attention of someone who could do something. She scrolled through her contacts, her thumb hovering over his name. It took a moment, but she pressed call. Emily? His voice crackled through, buoyed with an unmistakable warmth. Is everything okay? You sound off. Jack, I need your help. It's about Grayson, she said, urgency saturating her voice. I think he's involved in something much worse than anyone knows. I need you to investigate him. There was a pause on the line, and she could imagine him sitting at his cluttered desk, brow furrowed with curiosity. What do you mean? What has he done? He's lying to everyone. Blackmailing. Using people. I can't prove anything yet, but there's got to be something, records, conversations, anything that can expose who he really is. You have to trust me on this. Okay. Slow down. If you're right, this could blow up, Emily. I know, but I can't just sit here. He's dangerous, and I feel like the walls are closing in. If he finds out I'm onto him, say no more. I'll look into it, Jack replied, the determination resonating in his tone. But keep your head down, Emily. Don't confront him alone. We can't make him feel cornered. Right. I'll be careful, she promised, even as a knot of apprehension twisted in her gut. She ended the call and glanced back toward the interrogation room. They needed to buy time to gather more information. It was her only chance. With a newfound sense of purpose, Emily took a deep breath and prepared to step back inside. Her gaze lifted to meet Grayson's fleeting silhouette through the glass panel. The way he carried himself, the unbroken confidence, the sly smile made her stomach churn. But she couldn't let fear win. As she walked toward the door, she overheard snippets of chatter from some officers discussing Grayson's charm. They didn't see him for what he truly was. They were all still under his spell. Determination flooded her veins again. "Excuse me," she heard a familiar voice call out. It was one of the officers, glancing her way. "Are you okay? You seem a bit tense." She plastered a faint smile on her face, hiding the storm brewing inside. "I'm fine. Just thinking." "About him?" The officer nodded toward the interrogation room. "Yes," she affirmed, her resolve stiffening. "I'm determined to get to the truth." Just then, a knock echoed through the hallway. Grayson stood at the door, the same confident mask back in place. She could see the flicker of interest in his eyes as he scanned her. The moment of truth was so close now. As he stepped forward, she clenched her fists. Was this the moment he realized her strength? Or was it just the beginning of his next move? Emily took a step closer, ready to confront the heart of treachery. But she couldn't shake the nagging thought. What if he had plans for her plans darker than she could ever imagine? The air in the police station was thick with tension as Emily took a deep breath, collecting herself for the confrontation with Grayson. She had stood in shadows long enough. Now it was time to step into the light. "Emily Carter," Grayson said, his voice smooth but laced with malice. "Nice to see you. Haven't disappeared into the woodwork like I hoped." "Funny, I could say the same about you," Emily shot back, refusing to let his words cut deep. He leaned back, a smug look on his face, as if the stakes didn't faze him at all. "You've really stirred the pot, you know. You might want to rethink your power trip. Everyone is watching." "Then let them watch," she shrugged, a tremor of defiance coursing through her. "They should see the real you. The fake hero hiding behind a badge." A smirk tugged at his lips. "Hope you remember that. You don't know what you're getting into." As the officers processed Grayson, Emily couldn't help but notice a crack forming in his confidence. Perhaps the fear she felt was turning into his. It ignited something in her, igniting an inner strength she barely recognized. She was determined to let the officers see that Grayson was a predator masquerading as a protector. "You think it's a game, but this is everyone's lives you're toying with. You've hurt good people," she said, her voice steady. "Save the theatrics, Emily," Grayson replied, irritation edging into his tone. "This isn't some soap opera." Yet inside her, a murmur of hope expanded. She could see Grayson's once unshakable armor beginning to tarnish as the officers exchanged glances. The lead officer cleared his throat, gaining momentum. "You know, Grayson, the more you refuse to cooperate, the worse it will look for you." "If Emily's right, that's the problem," Grayson interrupted with rising defensiveness. "She's not right. She's just a baker with a bad attitude." Emily felt her heart racing. This was the moment she had prepared for. "I've got evidence, Grayson. And it's not just kitchen gossip. It's proof of your treachery. You've used your badge to destroy people for your own gain." He scoffed, but the flicker of uncertainty on his face told her it wasn't just bravado anymore. "Is that so?" the officer demanded, eyes narrowing. "What do you think we'll find if we search your records?" "Because Emily here is determined to show us the truth." Grayson hesitated, any semblance of confidence dissipating. "You think you can pin this on me? You haven't got a clue." "Maybe you're right," Emily said softly, her voice rising above the tension. "But what if I do? What if everything crumbles down around you? Have you thought about that?" She saw a cold sweat begin to form on his brow, and it sent tingles of victory through her. "Enough," the lead officer barked, directing his attention back to Grayson. "You've got until morning to explain, or I bet the judge won't see any leniency." As the narrow door closed behind Grayson, sealing him inside the room, a wave of relief washed over Emily like a tender smile of sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "Emily," the officer turned to her, genuine concern clouding his features. "You need to be careful. This is just starting." "I know," she replied, breathless but grounded. "But I refuse to let fear dictate my choices. If I lose my bakery, my community, I lose everything. I can't let him win." The officer exchanged a knowing look with his colleagues, a silent agreement to dig deeper. That night, as the distant sounds of sirens echoed through Maplewood, Emily returned to sweet dreams. The familiar scent of cinnamon and vanilla calmed her racing heart. The bakery wasn't just a business. It was her home, her heartbeat amidst uncertainty. But she also needed to prepare. Grayson wasn't done. As she began to jot down everything she'd learned, a surge of faceless shadows in her community flickered in her mind. The next morning, A piece of paper slipped under her bakery door heralded another betrayal. Grayson had allies, those who valued power over integrity. Fight for the truth, Emily. You have to gather your people. She whispered to herself, the determination swelling in her chest. Fight for everyone who believed in you. Reaching for her phone, she didn't have a moment to waste. Her community, the ones still believing in goodness, were her greatest asset. It was time to unite. Hey, Jack, she said when he picked up. We're doing this together. Grayson will not silence us. The resolve in her voice echoed loudly, not just for her, but for everyone in Maplewood. The whispers of doubt had turned into a roaring tide of truth, and she would ride it. Together, they would uncover the twisted web Grayson had woven around innocent lives. A fight for her story, her community, and her truth. With faith in her heart, Emily looked out the window. The sun was rising, illuminating a path forward. Today we stand together, or not at all. She stepped outside, ready to confront the shadows and shine a light too bright to dim. And with that, the battle for truth began, a journey to expose the darkness threatening to engulf her community. Determined hearts would rise, and Grayson's farce would crumble, finally bringing justice to the ones who needed it most. Now was the time for action. But first, she needed everyone's support to break the silence and bring the truth to the forefront of their fight. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. You need to comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait, not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.